Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how you can configure DHCP server and inter-VLAN routing for the case of hierarchical model, right? So I decided to make this class following a question that I received from one of the followers. So the question said, let me just open it for you. My ISP has given me a router and has an IP address. In my network topology, I require a Cisco router, a core switch, and 5 other smaller switches. Okay, so the smaller switches are for different VLANs. That means I will create 5 VLANs for my network and use DHCP IP automatic assignment. I'm inquiring on how to make the trunk port for this. Alright guys, so this is the question that you have so far. That is a little bit challenging for some of us, but after watching this class, guys, trust me, you will have full understanding of DHCP server and inter-VLAN routing configuration. So guys, before I can proceed, kindly, if you have not subscribed, hit on the subscribe button, like our video and share. Alright, so let's begin. The question says, the guy has a router, has a layer 3 switch and other layer 2 switches, okay, and he wants to configure DHCP server on the router. Okay, considering this question, guys, you know, our topology should follow the hierarchical model. Let's begin. Let's say we have a router here, just like the guy have said, right? And he has said he has another core switch. So for the case of core switch, we're going to use a layer 3 switch. Okay, so I'll place layer 3 switch there. Just choose this first one, this one, 3560. Okay, and another thing says, and another thing it says that other small switches. So basically small switches in that case, let's say layer 2 switches. Okay, 5 of them, but in our case, guys, let's use 3. Okay, because 5 is the same thing that we will configure. Okay, so this design follows hierarchical model design. Okay, as you can see, this is the core layer. A core layer, we can have a router or layer 3 switch. Okay, but on the distribution layer we should have a layer 3 switch, and finally on the access layer it's access layer 2 switches, right? Okay, so let me just connect them, and you must understand that hierarchical model follows, we start by the core layer, then we go to distribution layer, then finally access layer. Okay, and core layer devices can be a router or a layer 3 switch, but distribution layer strictly should be layer 3 switch. Okay, so let's assume this is the topology the guy is implementing. Okay, and said every layer 2 switch is in a different VLAN, such that this switch here should be in a different VLAN from this one and this one, and for this one and this one be in a different VLANs. Okay, so let me just connect end devices that we will test communication after configuration. So that will be in VLAN 10, let's assume that, then this VLAN 20, and finally here VLAN 30. Okay, so what you need to do, let me just connect them to the switches very fast. Let me just connect them very fast, then we begin our discussion. Okay guys, so our connection is done. So let's begin our discussion. to enable automatic IP address assignment to all these host devices, and these host devices are in different VLANs. Okay, and we have a layer 3 switch here. Okay, what are we gonna do? The first thing that I'll do, guys, let me just separate the boundaries. Today let me use I like blue, yellow and green. So the second one will be yellow, strong one, and finally green. Alright guys, so let me just adjust them so that we can begin our discussion. Alright guys, so let me just comment. Finally, there should be, let's say, IT department. I like IT because it's my career. A network of 192.168.1.0/24, then VLAN 10. Okay, let me just copy these so that I can modify, copy, paste here. Let's say this is finance, then 2.0 VLAN 20. Then finally here should be, let's say, HR department 3.0 VLAN 30. Okay guys, so we are done with the comments, so let's get to our discussion. Guys, remember in the previous classes, the first class that we did on DHCP server configuration, we had 3 departments or VLANs, and in each VLAN a layer 2 switch was connecting to a router at the center. For example, let's say this was our first class, this router is not here, so this is the router. All these departments are connecting to the router here. Let's assume that. Okay, and we configured IP address to each router's interface to the connecting LAN. Then we managed to implement the DHCP server. Okay, then the second class, we have a router and a switch. So it's only one switch that is connecting to the router, and in this switch there are 3 departments or VLANs in this switch. So what did we do? We implemented alongside inter-VLAN routing to enable us configure DHCP server successfully. Okay, and finally guys, in this class we've been given a problem that we need to follow hierarchical design model. Okay, of which we have a router, a layer 3 switch at the center, and access layer switches, 3 of them. What do you do? It's quite similar to the previous class that we had of inter-VLAN routing and DHCP server. So basically what we're going to do, guys, we must understand which ports should be trunk and which ports should be access ports. In this case, guys, I want you to understand this one very, very well. When we are configuring DHCP server and inter-VLAN routing here, all the ports in the access layer switches should be in access mode, provided that they are in the same VLAN. Okay, for example, all the ports here should be access ports, including this one, and assigned to VLAN 10. Then you go to layer 3 switch. That particular port that is connecting to VLAN 10 should also be access port. Then you assign that particular VLAN number here. The same way here, all these ports here should be access ports. You assign to VLAN 20, including this one. Also, all these ports should be access ports on this switch assigned to VLAN 30. Then you come to the layer 3 switch here. This port here connecting to HR department should be access port VLAN 30. Also, this port here on the layer 3 switch should be access port assigned to VLAN 20. Then finally, this should be a trunk port, the port connecting layer 3 switch to the router. Okay, so let's begin our configuration. The first configuration that we will do configure VLANs on every department. So let me just click on this one and go to CLI, enable config T, then interface range. Because we want to configure the same parameters to these three interfaces. We start with this one, FA0/1, FA0/2, and FA0/3. So it should be FA0/1, 2, 3. Okay, and you hit enter. Then you see switch port mode access. Okay, you hit enter. Then switch port access VLAN 10, all of them, all of these ports. Okay, all these interfaces should access VLAN 10. Okay, and you hit enter. VLAN 10 has been created successfully, and say do right. So we are done configuring everything on this switch. Let's go to this switch and we say enable config T and interface range. Let's just take the interfaces FA0/1, /2, and /3. So it should be FA0/1, 2, 3. Switch port mode access, then switch port access VLAN 20. Do right. We are done configuring everything on that switch. Then we go to this switch, CLI, enable config T, interface range. Let me take the interfaces FA0/3 to FA0/1, /2, /3. Okay, 1 to 3. FA0/1 to 3. Okay, switch port mode access, then switch port access VLAN 30. Do right. We are done configuring the access layer switches. So let's go to distribution layer switch, the layer 3 switch, the multi-layer switch. And we said, remember, all the interfaces 1, 2, 3 have been configured as access ports and assigned to VLAN 10. The same way, this connecting interface on layer 3 switch here should be access port and VLAN 10. Okay, so it's FA0/2. I'll go to FA0/2. No. Enable config T, then interface FA0/2, then switch port mode access, then switch port access VLAN 10. This one should be the same VLAN as the connecting LAN. Okay, the same as this port here. So I'll click on this switch again, exit, then which port was this? It is FA0/3. interface FA0/3 switch port mode access, then switch port access VLAN 20. We do right, then exit, then we come to the final interface, this one, okay, which is FA0/4. So interface FA0/4, then switch port mode access, then switch port access VLAN 30. Do right, exit, sorry, do right, exit. Okay guys, so guys, the first operation is done. The first operation was basically to assign VLAN numbers to some ports. And which ports were those? These ports here and the connecting port on the layer 3 switch. The VLAN number here should be similar to the VLAN number here. The VLAN number here should be similar to the VLAN number here. The same as for this case. Pretty much simple guys. So what's remaining? Before that, let me just turn on the router's interface, this one, so that it cannot look red. It should be green. So let me just go to the router. No, enable config t interface gig 0/0, no shut, do right. So we are done on the router. So let's just go back to this switch. We are not done on the layer 3 switch here. The next thing that we will do on the layer 3 switch here is to enable this interface to be in trunk mode. The trunk, it should be trunk port. Okay, remember, by default all ports on a switch are always in access mode, or they are always access ports. Okay, so let's make this port to be a trunk one. Enabling trunk on a layer 3 switch is quite different. So what do? Interface FA0/1, then switch port trunk encapsulation. This is how we enable trunk interface. Switch port trunk encapsulation dot 1 key, when you hit enter, then switch port mode trunk, you hit enter. As you can see, how to enable trunk port on a layer 3 switch. What do? You enter that interface, then the next command that you type is this one, switch port trunk encapsulation .1q. Okay, then finally let it be in trunk mode, switch port mode trunk. It's done. Then do right. We are done configuring everything on the distribution layer and access layer. So let's go to the core layer. Okay, the core layer here is the router that we will configure inter-VLAN routing and DHCP server configuration. The first thing that we need to configure is inter-VLAN routing, guys. Okay, how are we gonna configure inter-VLAN routing? Guys, we create sub interfaces. Remember we have 3 departments and we only have one physical link, so we need to configure some sub interfaces, a virtual one. Okay, so I'll go to the router. Remember we are done configuring the switches and the layer 2 switches and the layer 3 switch. Okay, so the configuration that is remaining are on the router. So I'll click on the router and say exit. What do? we start configuring inter-VLAN routing. And how do we configure inter-VLAN routing? We create sub-interfaces. For example, this is VLAN 10. Okay, we want to create a sub-interface. We say interface. We take this one. This one is gig 00, okay, and we say interface gig 0/0. Okay, then how do we create sub-interface dot? You take the VLAN number here, .10, and you hit enter. As you can see, it has been created. Then what do? We say what is called encapsulation. Encapsulation dot 1Q, then the VLAN number. Okay, remember the first command is this one. You create sub-interface, interface gig 0/0.10. See, yes, 10. Then the next command, encapsulation dot 1Q, this VLAN number 10. Okay, then you assign IP address to this interface, to the sub-interface, to that sub-interface IP address, and that IP address will act as the default gateway to this network. Okay, 192.168.1.1, then subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. okay, you hit enter, then no shutdown. Okay, we are done configuring a sub-interface, the first sub-interface. So let's go to the second sub-interface, which should be interface gig 00.0, interface gig 00.20, another sub-interface for this network VLAN 20. Okay, so let's enter and say encaps dot 1Q20, the VLAN number. Are you seeing my style? 20 here, 20 here. Okay, here and here. Hit enter. Then IP address to this sub interface. So I'll just try to retrieve and say here is 2.1. 2.1. Hit enter. Then no. Sure. Exit. Now final sub interface should be gig 0/0.30 for this network or this VLAN. Okay, so 30 for this should be gig 0/0.30 for this VLAN or network. Okay, and you hit enter. Then encapsulation dot 1Q30, the VLAN number. Guys, pretty much simple. Don't forget, step by step. Then IP address, let me try to retrieve the earlier configuration. Here should be 3.1 now. Then finally no shutdown. Do right. We are done configuring inter-VLAN routing. So guys, finally let's configure DHCP server such that these devices can obtain IP addresses automatically. Alright, so let me just go to the same route again and start configuring DHCP server. Guys, while configuring DHCP server, we said the first command that you should use is to enable that service. Service DHCP, and you hit enter. And now the service has been enabled, but by default, it's enabled. So suppose it's not enabled, use this command. Okay guys, so what's the next command? The next command, guys, we said you create the pools. For example, this is IT, we have finance and HR, so you create the pools, okay, as per the department or VLAN. Okay, so let's say IP, you say IP DHCP pool. Okay, IT department. Okay, and you hit enter. We have created a pool called IT department, and that pool we want it for this network or LAN. Okay, what do we do now? We we specify the network for this pool. The network should be network 192.168.1.0 network, this one. Then the subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. You hit enter, and now the default gateway for the case of DHCP server configuration, default gateway here is called default router. As after writing something like this, just hit on tab will finish it for you. Default router here will be the IP address of that sub interface. Do you remember the sub interface that we created when we were implementing Inter-VLAN routing? It was 192.168.1.1. Don't forget this sub interface. Let me just go up. Yes, this sub interface. Okay, gig 0/0.10. The IP address of that sub interface should be your default gateway. Don't forget, guys. Don't confuse. Okay, and DNS. Let's say 192.168.1.1. Hit enter and do right. And now exit. You exit. We are done configuring DHCP server for this network. Okay, so let's go to the next category, finance department. What do we do now? We create another pool. DHCP service has been enabled successfully, so we create another pool called, let me just retrieve the configuration, IP DHCP pool. Now we say finance debt. Okay, you hit enter. Then the network, let me try to retrieve the earlier configuration. Network should be 2.0. Then default router should be 2.1. I hope you remember the IP address of that sub interface we created while implementing Inter-VLAN. 2.1. Then DNS also 2.1, and do right. So finally exit. Finally, the final pool, HR. Let me just type this one. Let me just type it without retrieving the configuration. IP DHCP pool HR debt. Okay. Then network 192.168.3.0. Subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Hit enter. Default router should be 192.168.3.1. You remember the IP address of the sub interface we created, 3.1. Okay. Then DNS 192.168.3.1. Okay. Do right. Exit and do right again. Guys, we are done with our configuration. So what's remaining is to verify our configuration. We will go to each department and try to verify if those particular devices have obtained IP addresses automatically. So let's start with this computer. Go to desktop, IP configuration. It is static, so let's go to the DHCP. Give it time, guys. It will pick up. As you can see, guys, successful. Guys, successful. .1, .2, I mean. Then parameters have been configured successfully, guys. It's successful, guys. Pretty much simple, step by step. DHCP, pretty much simple. 1.3, and all the parameters have been assigned successfully. So let's go to the second category, finance, desktop IP. Then you come to DHCP. Pretty much simple, guys. As you can see, 192.168.2.2, because 2.1 was taken by default gateway. Okay. And then finally, on this category, DHCP 2.3 I mean, as you can see. And finally, the last department, IP, then you come to DHCP 3.2 I mean, 3.2 as you can see. Very successful, guys. Very simple. Very simple. All you need to do is to clearly follow the video. As you can see, 3 guys, very cheap, very simple. And remember, we have configured Inter-VLAN routing and DHCP server, meaning the devices in the network should communicate. So let me try to ping. This is which IP address of this one, 3.3. 3.3 will try to ping 1.3 and 2.3. You will see successful. Ping 192.168.1.3. Give it time. The first packet might always fail, but the subsequent one, as you can see, very simple. Everything is working. Everything is working, guys. Everything. Our configuration is working successfully. So let me try to ping from, let's say, from IT department to finance and HR. So let me use this computer. The IP address is 1.3 I mean. So 1.3 will try to ping 2.2 and 3.2. Ping 192.168.2.2. Give it time, it will be successful. As you can see, everything is working, right? Now finally 3.2. Everything is working, guys. Pretty much simple, guys. All you need to do, follow the video keenly, and make sure that all the interfaces on this switch should be access ports and VLAN 10, and the same way as the connecting interface on the layer 3 switch. Okay, very simple. The same way for here and for here. And finally, here should be trunk interface. Pretty much simple. And through this configuration, we shall have achieved answering this question. Okay, pretty much simple, guys. Basically, that will mark the end of today's class. Suppose you like our video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment below please, and share our video. Bye, and see you again in the next class.